Hey, hello, welcome to Soulpreneur Scaling Stories. I am really excited to be here with Jana O, who is a content strategist and creator of the High Leverage Content Program. Jana, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. So I'm really excited to dig into a couple of things with you.
Okay.
And one, we're going to talk about your journey because you started somewhere where a lot of my audience is at right now. And I think it would be really interesting for them to hear how you ended up where you are. And we're going to talk about content. And I think that the type of content we're going to talk about is going to be something that is really, really attractive to my done for you service providers because most of them do not like being on social media and like to be in the background. So I'm going to give you the choice. Choose your own adventure. Which part of the story do you want to start with today?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to talk about my journey, where I am and where I started, and what I have in common with a lot of the folks in your audience. And then I'm sure in the context of that story, I'll be telling you about this concept that I created my program around, which is the Capsule blog concept. And I think that what you're talking about, that everybody is finding attractive, not only these days, but people have always wanted this, is having a blog that actually sells your paid offers. So I
Yes.
think that starting there and then getting into the details of the paid blog, I mean, the capsule blog strategy would be good.
Amazing. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us. Okay, so first of all, tell us what you do now. So what does your look like?
Yeah.
And then we'll get into how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So I've been in business now in this business of mine for going on about 9 years. I think I've been saying 8 years now for about a year. So it's probably about 9 years. And I currently run a program called High Leverage Content. And I'm just about to cross over 400 students inside. So it's a program, yeah, that I developed based on something that I did for my own business years ago, and then also did for clients as well for many years, and then turned into a program. And I have lots and lots of coaches and done for you service providers inside my program. So it's really a program that's built for them. And these days it is a curriculum based program. So I call it a course with support. So it's very curriculum based, and but there's also some support around it. So we have like a private student only Facebook group where I do a lot of support, and I do strategy calls with the students as well that they unlock as bonuses. And we also have a monthly like Q&A and support call. So it's very much a course, but there is some like this added layer of support. So I spend most of my time these days doing two things: fulfilling that, right? And helping my students and my clients with the work that they're doing with my curriculum and my program, helping them build a capsule blog and learning how to use it to get clients, and using it to get clients. And the other part of what I spend a lot of time doing these days is marketing it, because when you when you get to the point where you are selling more of a one-to-many program, if that's something that you decide to do as part of your scaling journey, your job just kind of shifts, right? You're doing a little bit less delivery maybe, because the one-to-many program, a hallmark of that, and certainly for me it's true, is that the curriculum does a lot of the coaching and teaching.
Right.
But your job kind of shifts so that now you're doing more marketing because you need to make more sales at a lower ticket, right? In order to, generate the income that you want and the impact that you want your program to have. So that's what I do: is I deliver to my students, I support them in the program, and I market the program and get more people to join it. Those are my two jobs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really interesting. So I don't know the story, so I'm curious to hear. I do know that you started actually as a virtual assistant. So I would love to hear how you got from there to where you are now. What did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I did. So back in the day, I worked in corporate HR for about 16 years, and I was leaving Boston and coming to Florida, where my family had been coming for many years, and I had family down here, and I was making a change in life and wanted to kind of start fresh, which a lot of people do who come to Florida. And when I came to Florida, I worked for my family's business for a little while and helped them kind of grow it before my parents were actually ready to sell it and retire, which they did. And then I was kind of like, okay, what am I going to do? Do I go back to corporate HR? I'm like, I don't think so. I don't want to do that, because I had gotten a taste of what it was like to kind of work for myself, because I was working for my parents
Yeah.
and they were kind of letting me do what I wanted to do. So I decided I wanted to work online. I wanted this laptop lifestyle that I was reading about and hearing about. And so I did a little research on it, and I decided that it seemed like the best way to kind of break into it and learn the ropes was to support someone's business. And I had a degree in marketing and was a communications person for years and did a lot of like corporate training when I was in HR. So I thought that supporting someone's business behind the scenes in that way seemed like a great idea. And when I started kind of putting my feelers out for that, I worked for some of my family's like former clients for a little while, did a little bit of everything, supporting different kinds of people doing different things.
Right.
But there was a coach / course creator / brand strategist at the time who found out about me just through, I don't know, I can't remember. I think it was through a referral. And she said, hey, I'm looking for a VA to do all of my content repurposing, content marketing. You'd just be doing a lot of like marketing and content tasks behind the scenes. And I was like, VA. I searched that and I'm like, oh, right, of course. So I said yes. And, the rest was kind of history. I worked on retainer with her for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Became her, like we kind of started calling the position like a content manager at one point. I was doing Pinterest marketing for her. I was doing blog writing, blog repurposing, YouTube writing and repurposing. And I also took on other clients during that time for the similar work for Pinterest management, Pinterest setups, and blog strategy and done-for-you blog writing. And so that's how I, transitioned into this business. I started as a VA. And to this day, whenever I see someone like on Threads say like, oh, how do I get into this business? Or like, what can I sell online? I really want to do this or whatever. I always say, have you thought about starting as a VA? Because to me, that's like the best way you can just sort of like get a taste of a lot of different people's online businesses and work remotely. And like, it's great. To me, it's like the best way to work remotely and learn the ropes.
Yeah, and it's really funny because we were talking about before we started recording that when you told me like, I started as a VA, I was like, me too. And I did it almost for the same reason. I started so I could see how other people's businesses ran and try out everything so that way I could figure out what my path would be.
Right.
Yeah. And so, okay, so then you did that, and I would love to hear now about kind of the transition away from VA into wherever it goes next.
Yeah. So I feel like I think about it kind of as like the transition from like done-for-you service provider because, they kind of blended. I was her VA, but I was also her content manager. And I was, the term VA, we all know the story behind that. Like everybody calls it one thing and it's all sorts of things. Or it can be, depending on how you define it. So going back to when I was on retainer with my main client, I also had this other main offer that I was really all in on, which was Pinterest strategy builds and blog writing. And those were projects. So because I had this one retainer client, the other people I wanted to take on, I didn't want other retainer clients. I wanted projects. So I could kind of turn the faucet on and off in terms of income when I wanted to. And I knew that in order to be able to like stay booked out with that service, however I wanted to define booked out at that time, whether doesn't necessarily mean I always had another client the day after one project ended, we started another one. But however I wanted to be booked out, I realized that I needed like a strong pipeline of clients. But also at the same time, I was on retainer with this amazing, coach who I was just like learning so much from and was loving the work. And I was also doing the done-for-you work for the projects that I was also booking. And I was starting to get a good reputation for getting good results with them. So I was starting to do a lot of them. And so I was really limited in my time for marketing. And I think that's one of the big challenges that a lot of us face when you do done-for-you work is like, you're literally, when you look at your calendar, it's like all your client work it's on your calendar. You have time blocks for the work that is the client work. So when do you find time to also be like the full-time marketer to keep your pipeline full?
Yeah.
And it seems to us like we have to do both, right? It's crazy.
And I'll add to that in that most people, or at least people that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot, they don't love marketing or they don't love having to be, having to show up or be like the front-facing person. And a lot of done-for-you service pros, they feel like, oh, marketing means Instagram or, like it means one thing in particular, but that's not really, that's Instagram obviously has one way to market, but there are so many other ways to do so. And and yes, I'm setting you up. So take us down your
you're like, and
journey.
No, definitely.
No,
that's so right. And it just shows how well you know your audience, because that's the factor, especially with people who do done for you because they love the behind the scenes role is that they don't necessarily want to step out and like market their business and be the face of their own business, if that makes sense, right? So what I did back in the day, because I did kind of feel a little bit like that, and also because I didn't want marketing to take up the rest of my calendar, there's kind of another part of the story where I actually had, I had met my now husband at the time, and we were doing a lot of traveling, and it was I met him later in life. And so I was kind of going through something that I had never really gone through in my life, which was like being with someone new in that way. Because I had originally, like, my first husband was like my college sweetheart and blah, blah, blah. And so that was kind of my motivation for the laptop lifestyle. And so I really, really didn't want to have all the client work plus another full-time job being a marketer. I wanted to have free time to really, you know, live my life, right? And so I decided that I was going to write a blog. I decided that I was going to start writing the things on my blog, on my own website, that were the key things that I believed that I was starting to understand were the main things that my ideal audience, coaches, service providers, mostly health coaches at the time were my ideal audience for that offer. I started writing the things that I knew that they needed to hear and learn and understand from me in order to feel ready to buy my Pinterest setup offer. And so instead of starting a blog by thinking, okay, what do I want to write about? Like what tickles my fancy today, you know, what's going on in my business or my life that I just want to share with people? I thought, what should I write about so that when people read it, they're going to know the things that they know and understand them more deeply to feel ready to buy my offer? How can I show them what problems I can solve with my offer? How can I like bust up their myths and objections to get them to the point where they're like, oh, okay, I am ready for that, etc. And so I wrote those blog posts. I ended up writing about 18 of them altogether. I didn't call it a capsule blog at the time. Now I do call that a capsule blog. And then because I noticed that people were converting when they read those blog posts, they would come to my sales calls and be like, oh yeah, no, I already read a few of your blog posts. I know I want to do this. Just tell me when your next date is. I was like, okay, great. No convincing or anything. Because it was working, I decided that instead of just writing new content all the time, I was just going to keep sharing the content that I knew people were converting because of.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I was repurposing to some places, pulling parts of my blog out and sharing them in micro content. I was sharing and recirculating them instead of just publishing a blog and then sharing it and then just moving on and never sharing it again. I would reshare it all the time. And I was using those blogs in very strategic ways in my sales process to get clients. And so by doing that, I had this capsule blog library, which is what I call it now. And then the three kind of part approach, the repurposing, the resharing and recirculating, and the leveraging in the sales process, to be using those same blog posts over and over to get clients instead of always trying to come up with new things to say. And my blog got me booked out. It helped me raise my rates like 4 different times. And then eventually I started noticing that it was also helping me grow my audience because I was writing about things that people really cared about and really wanted. And so it grew my audience and my email list so that eventually I did have enough of an audience to be able to pivot away from the done-for-you work, which some people want to do, not everyone does. But if you want to do that, you have to have an audience to be able to get to the point where you have enough people to sell a one-to-many offer for too, right? Yeah. So that my blog did that for me as well. And so here I am now these days, selling that one-to-many offer, and I have a very large audience, and it's all because I wrote this capsule blog library.
And was that intentional on your end? Were you like, I want to step away, or it just kind of happened and it kind of ended up being a good fit?
Yeah, do you mean the pivot from doing done-for-you work to the,
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of was. So my main offer at that time that I wrote my capsule blog library around was my Pinterest setup. And I started charging like $500 for it originally. And then by the time I increased my prices like 4 times, I was charging almost $4,000 for a Pinterest setup, and people were still buying it. And yes, on some level, like I realized, okay, people really want this. I've developed a really good methodology because it's getting people results. And so I could teach this to more people at a lower price point. And so more people could do this. And I could do less done-for-you work, but also still help people in this way.
Right.
And so part of it was that, definitely. So yeah, it was a combination, like it is for most of us who make that transition. Like we want to help more people, but also it becomes a way to, it's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning. I transitioned from I'm now doing like less delivery, but I do more marketing. And for me, I like that because I'm a marketer.
True.
So I
So
don't,
it's a
yeah.
thing. What I see, because using my own terms that I use for my clients, is
Yeah.
it's almost like you stepped into like your unique magic is the marketing. You figured out this thing, and now you get to spend your day doing the parts of it that you love the
Yeah.
most of your business, and so
Yeah.
that's fulfilling for you. And I think,
Yeah,
and that's
I
really
agree.
important. So even for people, I think that hearing this journey, because I don't talk to a lot of people. Like, I mean, I have a similar journey, right? Going from done for you to coaching, but because my background is in psychology. And so that's why I love
Yeah.
like the deep one-on-one work and all of those things. And so that's my unique magic. And I think that it's really important for if you are done for you and you love it, amazing, right? Like, we're going to keep doing that. And if you're like,
Yes.
ooh, maybe I want to be more strategic or do this and that, there's a path for that as well. And that can very much be a part of your journey.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super curious whether you believe that people should try to do both at the same time. Because sometimes people say, well, I'm going to do both. I'm going to keep doing done for you, but I'm also going to have one-to-many offers. What do you think about that? What's your
So,
general advice?
yeah. So I say it depends. You can't grow both at the same time. Like I've tried, and it's impossible to focus on both things. And
Yep, I agree.
so what I teach, because my clients are pivoting from basically like general hourly retainer work to having a core offer, what helps their nervous system at that time is to keep maybe one or two retainer clients and then focus on this new thing. And so that way the base is there, like the foundation is there. And I think it's the same for me. Like I have one little small, I'd say like almost like a sort of like a content client at the moment. And I'm open for like maybe one one OBM retainer client. And that would be the kind of filling a similar thing where it's like, okay, it's kind of foundational. I do it. It doesn't take too much time, but my focus, my marketing and all of that is really focused on the coaching. So I think that
Yeah.
you 100% can't focus on both, but you can have one running in the background.
Interesting, yeah. And that's actually quite consistent with what I instinctively did back in the day. I kept my one retainer client, and really didn't talk about it much publicly that I was doing the retainer work,
Right.
until I realized it was actually an asset because people were like, oh, you do this work and did this for someone who's successful, right?
Yes.
But yeah, that makes sense. And then my focus in terms of my forward-facing marketing was on, at the time, my one Pinterest build offer. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, 1,000%. So, I have one question about your journey, and then we're going to flip it into talking about blogs and things like that. What I love to ask is, what was in your growth journey? Can you think of one thing that was a hurdle, the biggest hurdle for you, and how do you overcome it?
Which phase of growth do you think?
Whichever phase comes to mind for you, because I feel like it can be appropriate for anybody.
Yeah. I feel like the thing that my gut instinct is telling me to tell you is out of left field, and it's not really related so much to like the content part of the conversation. But for me, I think the biggest hurdle that I've had to the growth that I want has been being able to let go and delegate. And I'm sure you can appreciate that because I know you do work like that with people too. So I think one thing that does happen, and I think it does happen for done for you service pros a lot too, because like we are good at doing the work, but also we can't do it all, or it comes a time when we don't want to do it all.
Right.
And I saw someone the other day talking about how when you hire, you can hire someone who does things well that you don't do well, and that can be a better way to let go, but that's not always what you need. So I think hiring and then allowing those people to do their work and support me has been challenging over time. I do feel like I've come into a season where I've actually gotten much better at it. And now I have I have 3 people in my team. I have an operations assistant who's kind of like my OBM. She basically is my OBM. And then I have a person that does like all of my like email scheduling, who's kind of like a marketing assistant, but she's focused on email. And then and she does some miscellaneous things too. She schedules our YouTubes for us, my friend Heather, who do YouTube and stuff like that. And then I have a very, very, very part-time website manager. But it's taken me a while to really be willing to let go in a way that allows those people to really support me. But it's been very well worth working on those leadership skills and getting getting them in place.
Okay, so I think this is cool on two sides. One is hearing from somebody like the type of client that a lot of listeners to this serve, and knowing that, right? Take a, oh, it is difficult, and it can be a lot of times, right, for people to let go.
Yeah.
And how can I help that? Like, what are the things that I can do to make that easier? And to make that just process better. And then two is that a lot of them also have people on their teams. And and they're the type of people who know how to do all the things, right? Are organized, have the processes, and have to let those things go at some point, especially when they're doing things like they have a big core signature offer, and they're getting some help in executing that. And so I think that is really relatable on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, we're going to do a hard pivot into blogs.
Hard pivot.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm ready.
One thing we had chatted about also before recording was we were talking about referrals, and it was something that I had experienced myself, and I see happening a lot with service providers, is that so much business comes from referrals. And a lot of people just depend on that and don't do any marketing at all. And then something can happen where the referrals don't come anymore. In my case, I had a bit of a break. And all of the clients that I had before, and all was, my well dried up. And then when I went back I'm talking about OBM, and it was like starting from scratch. And because I didn't keep up with anything like on that. And that was really a difficult time period, was kind of like restarting again when the referrals were no longer there. And I think referrals are amazing and great. And there's a whole other world out there. So I always think that they're amazing, and we have to do more than that. So I would love for you to chime in about how what you do and what you teach can help with this dependency on referrals, and also your opinion on referrals as well.
Yeah, before we mention, because I think having a blog, creating a capsule blog, the way that I teach it, is amazing for someone who's wanting to expand into attracting more clients through methods other than referrals, especially done for you people, and I'll explain why. But I think one of the other pitfalls with relying so much on referrals is when you do want to make an adjustment or a change to the way you do business. For example, maybe you want to pivot from hourly to packages, like I know you teach, and things like that. It can feel like you're a little bit stuck if you're being referred by someone who already knows you as this person and this is the way you operate. And now they're sending someone else to you who also thinks that way. And maybe they did get the information from that other person that this is how you work. But even if they didn't, for some reason, in your brain, you think they did. You know what I mean? Like you think, well, if this person sent this other person, I need to run my business the same way. And now I can't make that adjustment or that change that I wanted to with this new client because they referred from the old client. And that's just one example of the way I think referrals can kind of keep us stuck.
Yes.
Go
okay.
ahead.
And let me add to that too, because this is something that all my clients experience, is that most of the time when they're creating this core offer, it's more elevated than what they've been doing. And so then their current referrals no longer fit because they're at a different stage of business or things like that. So now there can be an anxiety, and yes, I address this in what I teach, in terms of, wait, now I have this new thing, but I have nobody to sell it to because I don't know anybody now at this other level. So that's another instance where that happens.
Yep, totally. I think it's definitely, it's interesting. And it's funny, I haven't had a conversation like this in a while, so thank you, because I feel like sometimes I forget some of my roots, and that's not great, because I have a lot of done-for-you service pros, a lot of OBMs and VAs, a lot of website designers, people like that, copywriters like in my program. But it's good for me to have a moment to like think back and like what I've experienced and what I believe and what I experienced with referrals. So thank you. Okay, all that to be said, inside my program, because we create a capsule blog library, it's only 12 to 20 blog posts. It's not something where you blog every single week or every month for the rest of your darn life. We only create the capsule library, and then we turn to the repurposing and the resharing and the leveraging of it to get the clients. So because of that, we're very, very intentional about what we're blogging about. This is not a blog where you're just writing about your day, or even if it's somehow related tangentially to your work, that's not this kind of blog. This, again, is like I had mentioned earlier, it's thinking about what are the key things that my audience needs to learn from me and hear from me and understand better to feel ready to buy my offer. And so the first third of my program is figuring those things out. And I have a 9 and 2 content pillar system that we use to do that, where we brainstorm topics in the 9 things that your audience needs from you to feel ready to buy. identify which ones are actually relevant to your audience, not just you, but to them, and which ones are also aligned with your paid offer. So we use like a little litmus test for that. And then that's how we develop our content topics and the actual content plan for the 12 to 20 blog posts that you're going to write. Then and only then do we move into the part where we actually write the blog post. And I have outlines that I give you for each of the 9 types and blah, 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 and we get that done. But it's not just about building it. It's about first figuring out what your content needs to say to get people interested in your offers. And when you're going from getting referrals, which basically, I'm not saying getting referrals is easy because you have to do really good work to get them. You have to encourage them in some cases. But to some degree, it feels a little bit like referrals kind of fall on your lap, but you can't really control when they do,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
So moving from that to actually having content out there that is bringing clients to you and helping them understand the value of the work that you do so that they want to hire you and they understand why you charge this way, why you do it this way, et cetera, et cetera. Identifying those things that you need to say in order to get them understanding those things, it's like, I'm going to say it's half the battle, but it's probably more than half the battle. So I think doing that work and being really, really intentional about what you're going to write about and then structuring the actual blog posts in a way where they're high converting is so much of where like the goodness comes from when you're doing this. Once you have a capsule blog, it's amazing having it too, but the process and the journey of creating it is super helpful when you're trying to get into the space where you're used to talking about your offers publicly and talking about them in a way that gets people understanding them and wanting to buy them. So that's one of the reasons I think it's great. And then having the blog so that you can then repurpose. And when I was doing my capsule blog, back when I was a done-for-you service provider and I was booking all my Pinterest setups and I had my retainer client, I was doing my marketing in 1 day per month. So I had 1 day per month where I would sit down and repurpose everything I needed from my blog posts. And I teach that system now, obviously, as part of the program.
Can you hint on it a little? Well, after you finish your topic, I'm curious about, because I think a lot of people are curious about, okay, what does that mean and how does that actually help me get clients?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. I'm an open book. But yeah, so like having to be able to do that, but in less time per month or less time per week is so crucial for those of us who are done for you, because again, we have like client work on our schedule.
Right,
We can't also have another full-time job as a marketer, right? So tell me more about your question. What were you
so this
wondering
is
about?
what comes to mind when you're saying that, okay, yes, like I get it, that sounds really cool. And then I'm like, wait, but now, okay, so you're talking about you have the blogs, that makes sense. And now it's like the disconnect that I'm having in my brain is when you talk about, oh, the clients are coming to you, or you're sharing your repurposing, and maybe an example of what that looks like to have it be a little bit more concrete.
Yeah, for sure. So in the program, the goal is to build a capsule library with 12 to 20 blog posts. When you hit milestone 1 in the program, that means you've published your first 4 blog posts. And that's where we actually start. There's like different lessons that get unlocked for leveraging and repurposing. So I encourage my students to choose a 3-prong visibility strategy where you have your one long-form content platform, which for most of my students is a blog. Occasionally people use the strategy for a podcast or a YouTube channel, but usually it's a blog. And then you have email marketing, which I consider to be a non-negotiable for everyone, including done-for-you service pros. And I know not everyone agrees with me, but I think it's very important.
I'm on that train. Yeah.
And then the third prong is your visibility strategy. So you would choose 1 or 2 visibility and growth platforms. For some people, that's a social media channel, but it doesn't have to be. There are other platforms you can use and strategies you can use that are not social media to grow your blog readers and grow your email list, which is the same thing, really. And then cycling through sharing your content in different ways. So again, that comes to like the repurposing to social, if you're doing social, repurposing to your emails in artful ways, even expanding on your blog post to create like speaking topics if you want your growth strategy maybe to be podcast guesting or summits or something like that. And then, so it's basically expanding from having your blog, which is really like the source of truth for your marketing and your body of work, and leveraging that in all different ways. And I consider that in like 3 categories. There's the repurposing, the resharing and recirculating, which a lot of people don't do with their blog. They just publish a blog once and then they move on and either write another blog or not. And when you write this way, the way that I teach, it's like you really want to recirculate it because you know people are going to read it and want your offer. So you're like, okay, I'm going to share this everywhere. That's how it worked for me. And that's how it works for my students. And then the third way is using it in your sales process. So for example, when you have discovery calls booked, you might share a blog post prior to the discovery call, or if people connect with you in the DMs and ask to pick your brain, I teach a little strategy where you can pivot them from a pick my brain question to a, hey, I wrote a blog about that. And when they go to read the blog is actually showing them how you help in the paid offer in a way that is, it's not like overly salesy feeling, if you will. I mean, that's kind of a weird word, but it basically gives them value, but also sets them up to understand the value of your paid offer. Okay. That's how we write them.
You know what I really like? So that makes all the sense. And so thank
okay,
you
good.
for
Does that fulfill your?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Does that fill in the gap for you? Yeah. Okay,
And
good.
I think what's really cool is that so the third phase of what I do is about creating a marketing system, because same reasons, done for you, don't have all the time, so you have a system, what we're going to do, and I talk about visibility and nurture platform, etc. But the thing that's really cool, and I think that's where a synergy is, so if I'm going to use some weird tech, I don't know
I love it.
Word is that what I love, and I think, which is, I don't know, now I just can't think of any other word besides synergy, but we're it's a nice little
use it. I love it. I think it's good. Yeah.
Is that the what you teach and the blog content is basically everything that you need for everything else for your marketing,
exactly.
More or less. And so it's a really good pairing, between what I teach, my clients do, my VAs and OBMs, and then they have they don't have to worry about what to say, because okay, I can just pull it. I've done all the work,
exactly.
and now I can just pull it from here and go to my channels and my system and do all the things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really does. And that's one of the reasons why I was able to use this system to get my marketing down to 1 day per month, because when I sat down to do it, I already knew which blog post was up in my rotation to repurpose from.
Yeah.
I knew where I was going to repurpose it, right? I could even sometimes after a while, I had enough content banked that I didn't even have to rewrite it if I wanted to. I could share something, that I had repurposed from the same blog post 3 months ago, for example. So yeah, it definitely, cuts down on the decision making.
Yes.
It sounds kind of cliche, but it basically means when you have a Capsule blog library that you're leveraging this way, it basically means you're never staring at a blank page again. You're never going on Instagram and thinking, I really need a client. Yeah. What should I post to get a client today?
Right.
And that's just the worst feeling. Yeah. I remember feeling about that. So
yeah, no, amazing. I love it. Big fan of the idea, and yeah, I really like that it's just doing all of the work up front, and then you're okay, I put in the work, and now I can just use it as my base for
exactly. And it's still
cool.
work. I mean, there's never going to be a situation where it's literally all marketing, set it, forget it. Everybody wishes there were, but not really. Even Pinterest, which is one of my favorites, is not set it and forget it entirely. It's close as you can come, but yeah, it's just makes everything easier and less time consuming, because and that's why I call the program high leverage content, because you get leverage, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. Last question is I feel like blogs are in general right now are having a bit of a resurgence. There was a time period, so they were really amazing, super popular. Then I feel like they kind of waned a bit in terms of popularity. And now I feel like they're having a bit of a resurgence with this kind of up and down and how things go in terms of marketing platforms and whatnot. And my WhatsApp notifications coming onto my laptop. So in terms of how these things go and the ebbs and flows of platforms, how has that, because you've been doing this for a number of years, so how has that played into using blogs or having blogs kind of be your main driver of marketing?
Yeah, I think that, yes, there's a lot of talk right now about blogs, and I think there's a lot of different kind of circumstances that are coming together. Social media is not working as well as it once did. People are feeling like they want less social media in their lives for all kinds of reasons, that from everything from I want less comparisonitis to I just want less screens, whatever. I also think there's a little bit of now that we have AI, can we use AI to build blogs? And by the way, my short answer to that is yes, we have AI tools in my program, but I'm very judicious about how I teach people to use it, because I definitely don't want them to just put a bunch of, AI stuff up on their blog and then be like, okay, I have a Capsule blog. It needs to be very good blog posts, right? But yeah, you can use AI to make it better and faster. But so I think that there is this resurgence, yes. And I don't really, it hasn't really changed how I teach it, because the way that I teach it is just how I did it. And it's been a very consistent process that has always worked for people that I teach it to and people that I did this type of work for when I was doing client work back in the day and everything. But I will say that there's been more of a need, I think, for me to educate, especially for service providers and coaches too, but service providers we're talking to today mostly. I think some coaches listen to your podcast too. But there's been a lot of need for me to help people understand that you are, just because you start a blog to get clients in your business doesn't mean you're now a blogger. Because a lot of people think, or they'll Google blog advice and they're getting advice that is, or they'll ChatGPT blog advice and they're getting all the advice out there that is for like bloggers, people who have food blogs or fashion blogs or monetize their blogs with, traffic from Mediavine and affiliate links. And that's not us.
Right.
And so I always say, you're not a blogger, you're a coach with a blog or a business owner with a blog. And so there are a lot of things that you might think you need to do with a blog. For example, you hear you have to blog consistently. And I'm like, well, no, you really don't. I believe and I do a capsule blog, and that's not blogging consistently. I want you to show up in front of your ideal client consistently, but you don't need to write a new blog every week or every month for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. And you don't have to release it every Tuesday morning or anything like that. That's old blogging thinking,
Yeah.
So that's just an example. I have, some other spicy sort of opinions about things like whether you should start with keywords, which I do not believe you should, and what kind of formatting you need for your blog. There's a lot of things people think they're going to need, and it kind of scares them away sometimes from a blog. And you'd be surprised by how little of that advice actually applies to you and how much simpler it really is when your blog's goal or your goal with your blog is to just use it to get clients as opposed to trying to monetize it with some other method. So I don't know if that answers your question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think it's really cool too that even when blogs were maybe not so trendy, that this still consistently works. And I think that's really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, it's the
leveraging piece of it. That
exactly.
helps,
It's not just about writing a blog and then waiting a year and a half for Google to start giving you a couple hits to it every month or whatever. That's not the strategy that I teach. The way we write it is Google friendly, and my blog, when I was writing my blog the way I wrote it, even though I didn't intentionally target keywords in the beginning, I did rank on Google, and I believe that there's value in doing that eventually. It's just I don't think it's where you start. So I have a concept I teach called unforced SEO around that. But yeah, I think it's a different way of thinking about your blog altogether. It's almost like sometimes I say it's not really a blog. It's just a collection of articles on your website that helps people when they're learning about you to get everything they need in one place quickly to feel ready to buy your offer. And they're like, a blog? I'm like, yeah, a blog.
No, but it's an important reframe, and I really love that, because it really is like a one-stop shop type of a thing, where you don't leave any stone unturned.
Yeah. It's definitely a tool for attracting and converting your clients rather than being a tool that you're going to use for other types of monetization.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Jana, for being here, for sharing all of your blogging and content wisdom with us, and for sharing your journey. How can we stay in touch with you?
Yeah, if people want to know more about my Capsule blog library, just method in general, or if they want to decide if it's a good fit for their business, if they're wondering more about some of those FAQs that we didn't cover, how does SEO work with this, and how often do you repurpose blogs and things like that. I cover all of that in a free training that I have that's on demand. So if you go to janaomedia.com/free-blog-training, there's my Capsule blog plus repurposing method training that people can watch to dip their toe in and learn about it and decide if it's right for them. So that's a great place to find me. And then you and I connected, I think, primarily on Threads, although I think we've known each other in other places too. But so if anybody is looking for a place on social to connect, I'd say probably Threads is the right place for me. I'm kind of inconsistent there because I'm not, I'm social media optional is what I call myself.
Yes.
But usually you'll find some stuff there from me sometimes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. All the links will obviously be in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode. That's a wrap on today's episode, and thank you so much for listening. If anything we talked about today made you think, okay, but what does this actually look like in my business? That's exactly what a free business audit is for. In just 45 minutes, I'll help you identify your unstructured expertise, pinpoint what's keeping you capped, and map out what your signature method could look like. There's a link in the show notes to grab your spot, and I will see you in the next episode.